Most elk hunters mark every blue line on the map and then go walk all of them. That's not scouting for water. That's just hiking around and hoping that there's water there. Most of those water sources don't actually hold elk. A lot of them aren't even there by the time you've checked them on the ground, right? And then you've burned a couple of days on bad country before the hunt even starts. The problem is that elk hunters treat water as something to find on the ground instead of something to evaluate on the map. They walk to every creek and pond they can get to. That's backwards. The map work comes first. The on the ground confirmation is step two. Most elk hunters never do step one correctly. This episode gives you the specific process for identifying high probability elk water on a digital map before you ever drive to the trailhead. When you walk in, you already know which sources are worth your time and which ones to skip. Now, I've spent 34 years hunting and guiding western elk across every terrain type: open basin country, dark timber units, canyon systems, high alpine, and 30 years as a professional strength conditioning and nutrition coach working with athletes at every level, including years competing as an elite athlete myself. What I've learned from all of those worlds is that preparation done before the event determines the outcome of the event. Here's what that preparation looks like when it comes to finding elk water. Water doesn't just keep elk alive, right? It pulls them to a specific location at a specific time. And that predictability is the asset, not the water itself. Elk drink every day in warm weather, right? Early September, when temperatures are still high and the rut hasn't taken over yet, elk are using water sources on a very consistent schedule. Morning and evening are the primary windows. Midday water happens too, especially in dry, warm years when heat pushes elk to water in the middle of the day more often than a lot of folks expect. And that routine is what makes water worth finding. It's one of the few things in early season that concentrates elk in a predictable place at a predictable time. But water alone doesn't mean elk, right? A creek that elk could drink from doesn't tell you much on its own. It's too big. What you're looking for is water that sits inside high quality habitat, near bedding cover, off the pressure, accessible with the right wind. Water is just one layer in a multi layer map read. It's a locator, not a destination. So start with that frame of mind, and the rest of this is going to make a lot more sense. Open any digital mapping app and pull up your unit. The obvious water sources are going to show up as blue, right? Blue lines for creeks and rivers, blue shapes for lakes and ponds. Those are your starting points, but they're not the whole picture. What doesn't show on most maps are the springs, the seeps, the small seasonal water and wallow areas. Some of the best elk water in any unit isn't marked on the base layer at all. Here's how to find it. I want you to switch to satellite view. You're looking for green, right? In dry country, a patch of vegetation that's noticeably greener than the terrain around it means one thing: moisture. And that's a seep, a spring, or a small wet area that's never going to show up as blue lines, but also holds water consistently. Look at the terrain features below it. North facing draws and fingers hold moisture longer than south facing slopes. The bottom of a drainage that doesn't show a blue line can still hold water pockets for years. Rock outcroppings and cliff based depressions collect water that doesn't flow anywhere. It just holds in a low spot. That kind of water doesn't get mapped and it doesn't get pressured as much, and elk know exactly where those spots are. That unmarked water is often the most valuable water in the unit. Find it before you leave home. Now, a creek on a map in September might be bone dry when you get there too, right? That's an expensive mistake if it was your primary target and you've got 2 miles in behind you. Before you mark any water sources worth investigating, evaluate it on the map first. What elevation does it originate from? A creek fed by snowmelt above tree line holds water well into September, but a low elevation drainage in open dry country that shows a blue line on the map may run hard in May and be dust by mid-July. How big is the drainage feeding it? A thin blue line coming off a large high country basin has more behind it than a thin blue line coming off a small south-facing ridge with no real catchment behind it, right? Is it in shade? North-facing canyon systems lose less water to evaporation. A creek running through a shaded, tight canyon is is a lot more reliable in September than the same size creek running through an open south face bowl. Drought years change all of this too. When it's dry, reliable water is going to concentrate the elk. Fewer options means more predictable movement. Elk are going where the water still is, and if you found that water, you found the elk. Wet years spread them out more. When water's everywhere, it's less useful as a locator. Know what kind of year you're walking into before you build your water strategy around it. Hey, if you hunt public land elk and you're tired of grinding through random seasons, I built the elk hunting series of ebooks for you. Most hunters don't struggle because they lack effort. They struggle because they lack a system. And that's exactly why I built the elk hunting ebook series as a complete progressive framework for Western elk hunters who are done guessing and ready to hunt with intention. Volume 1 is going to be Foundations and Reality. I reset your mindset and expose the assumptions that quietly wreck seasons. In Volume 2, Finding Elk and Understanding Pressure, you'll learn how elk actually move under pressure so you can anticipate instead of react. In Volume 3, Terrain, Wind, and Position, I break down how to use landscape and thermals to consistently create opportunities. In Volume 4, Calling, Silence, and Pressure, sound becomes a decision tool, not an impulse. In Volume 5, Bow Hunting Execution, we're talking about close range strategy so you can finish your encounters. And in Volume 6, Late Season and Post Rut, we're talking about how elk shift after the rut and how to adapt when others quit. This is a system built for consistency. This isn't theory, it's a structured system to help you find elk, read country, and make confident decisions every season. Buy each volume individually or bundle them all to save 50% off at backboneunlimited.com. Every water source you've identified should go through 3 filters before it earns a spot on your priority list. The first filter is bedding proximity. Elk don't like being exposed. They're not going to cross a mile of open ground to drink if they don't have to. Water that sits inside or right at the edge of good bedding terrain, like north-facing timber or dark cover or escape terrain, that's worth your attention. Water sitting alone in the middle of an open basin, even if it's reliable and plentiful, is a lot lower priority for most elk. Elk are going to use it at night, maybe. They won't hang around it during legal shooting hours. The second filter is wind access. If the only way to approach a water source puts your scent cord directly into it, you're not hunting it. You're alerting elk that something went wrong. Every water source on your list needs a viable approach that keeps your scent out of the area. No clean approach means that source drops in priority, regardless of how good the habitat around it looks. The third filter is pressure. The easiest water to find is the most pressured water. Every hunter in the unit knows about the main creek in the bottom of the valley, the seeps sitting a mile and a half off the main trail behind a steep off-trail climb that most people won't make. That holds elk that haven't been pressured. Low pressure water that passes the first 2 filters ranks really high, a lot higher anyway than easy access water, right? Run every source through all 3 of those filters before you commit to it. Wallows are a different kind of water. They're not drinking sources. They're breeding seasonal habitat, right? Bulls use those to cool down, to coat themselves in mud, to pee and roll around in and leave their scent behind. An active wallow during the pre-rut or rut is one of the strongest pieces of sign you can find in elk country. An active wallow near your hunting area moves to the top of your sign list. A bull that's been in that wallow recently is probably living close. On the map, potential wallow sites look like small depressions near water or inside dark timber. Flat spots at the bottom north-facing draws are also worth checking. Satellite imagery sometimes shows the bare mud of an active wallow, so look for a small dark patch inside otherwise vegetated terrain. Now, on the ground, there's no missing an active wallow, right? Black churned up mud, a strong smell, hair on the surrounding brush, mud rubbed on the trees from where they rolled and then got up and rubbed it off, fresh tracks in the soft ground, rubs on nearby trees. That's a bull working that area. Now, don't set up right on top of it if you're going to sit a wallow. Set up downwind of the approach. Bulls don't just appear at a wallow, right? They come from somewhere and they're going back somewhere. So try to find that line and hunt that. Let them come to the wallow naturally. Don't sit right on top of it. A water source that only checks one of our boxes is going to be a low priority mark, right? A water source that checks all of your boxes is worth a real look. Now, the best water sits where multiple layers of your map reading converge. Water plus dark timber bedding, plus a low pressure approach, plus a clean wind setup, plus sign nearby. That's a combination that produces. None of those elements alone is probably enough to put much stake in it, but together they tell you where to put your time. Now, this layering is the map work you do before you leave, right? Not in camp on night 3 when you're tired and second guessing your position and your original plan. When you build your water layer on top of your terrain read, your bedding terrain read, and your pressure read at home, you're not just walking in blind. You know what you're looking for and why. Now, back to time of day. Elk water most predictably at first light and in the evening. Same windows as their feeding movement, right? That's when they're most likely to be on or moving towards a water source. Midday is your other window, especially when it's really warm. If your morning was quiet and you've got a high probability water source nearby, the midday decision makes itself. That's where you go and hang out. You're not burning time, you're hunting a real probability. Now, one thing that matters here is that elk pattern human presence near water really fast. If they smell you, they might move to just watering at night or they might abandon that area completely. So watch your scent. Don't hunt right on top of the water. Make sure you're hunting the trail on the way to it. Now, here's the process that I like with all this. Do this before you drive to the trailhead. Open your digital map and pull up your unit. Start with every blue line and blue dot. Evaluate each one for elevation, drainage size, and sun exposure. Anything at low elevation fed by a small drainage and open south-facing terrain is probably going to get deprioritized immediately. So switch to your satellite view. Scan for green patches in dry terrain and small dark depressions in the timber. Mark anything that looks like it could hold water, like a seep or a spring or maybe just a really well-used wallow. Run every marked source through the 3 filters: bedding proximity, wind access, and pressure. Anything that clears all 3 of those gets to stay on the list. Anything that only clears one gets moved off. From what's left, rank your top 3 to 5 water sources. Mark them with notes in your app. What makes each one worth checking out? What wind direction you need to approach it clean, and what you'll be looking for once you get there. Then build your backup order. If your top source is dry when you get there, you already know exactly where you're going next. And that decision doesn't get made in the field on tired legs, right? It gets made at home when you're thinking clearly. 2 hours on a map. That's the trade for 2 days of guesswork on the mountain. Now, if this episode made you realize you need a better elk plan this season, don't just watch another video and hope it all comes together. Build your plan right now. If you want to study my full system on your own, start with my elk hunting series of ebooks. If you want daily guidance, accountability, and a place to ask questions as season gets closer, join me on Team Backbone. If you want my eyes on your actual hunt plan, your maps, access, terrain, pressure points, wind, thermals, and your strategy, book an elk hunt plan audit with me and I'll help you tighten it up before season gets here. If the missing piece is your body, your legs, your lungs, your ability to handle mountain miles, and a heavy pack, check out my Backbone Unlimited training plans. And if nutrition is where you need more structure, getting leaner, fueling long days, or building a better in-season food plan, check out my nutrition plans. The hunters who are ready in September and October are the ones who start tightening their plan right now. So go to backboneunlimited.com, choose the path that fits where you are right now, and I'll help you get started. Thanks for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. I'll see you in the comments. You know I read and respond to all of them. Until next time, train harder, hunt smarter, and never settle.